Sheriff Mack is a man of courage, so please give him your attention, and I'm sure that he will bless us. Thank you.
Thank you. Now don't start that. Now I'm going to ask all the vendors, I'm going to tell you, while the other speakers were speaking, I could hear this little murmuring going on in the background. I'm going to ask everybody, vendors, everybody, all your people at my table, everybody's table, come and sit down. I promise you, you'll be blessed. So let's, I'm going to keep that promise. I do a lot better when I look out and I can see your eyes and that we're not doing a bunch of business. So everybody, vendors, everybody, sit down and enjoy this. And I promise you that if you don't like it, I'm going to refund your money. Yeah? True story. Now, I really enjoyed the remarks. I'm going to flat out say Pastor Whelan. Is it Pastor Whelan? Weiland, sorry. I agreed with about half that he said. And I think we're going to agree on some things here. My first inclination is we're not in trouble because we follow the Constitution. We're in trouble because we do not. Now, where I do totally agree with what he said is what John Adams said about the Constitution. It was entirely intended for a moral and religious people. And we have caused that. And the Constitution was designed to protect God-given rights. Now, I know what Patrick Henry said, and I love Patrick Henry. And he never signed the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. But I would have, and I will now, because it is there as a means to protect us from government. Thomas Jefferson said, "Let it be the chains by which our politicians are bound." The problem is they don't believe in it anymore, and it's our duty to make sure that they do. I would maintain, and I don't understand this, but I would maintain that even an atheist is still required to adhere to and follow the Constitution. And I have a right not to believe in God if I so choose. I personally believe in God. I really love the testimony of Benjamin Franklin, where he said, "I believe in one God, that he ought to be worshiped. And the greatest thing that we can do in this life is doing good to our fellow man." I believe in every bit of that. And I believe that the Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights, has us do that. But where we have gone wrong is we have turned our backs on God, we have turned our backs on America, and we have turned our back on the Constitution, and we have politicians who believe that they are superior to God and the Constitution. And if we're going, I would tremble to think what would happen if they were actually able to repeal the Second Amendment. I don't want the Second Amendment repealed. I want it obeyed. Okay? Now, does my right to keep and bear arms supersede the Constitution? Of course. I had that right before the Constitution was written. It was simply written to protect a right that I already had. And so if we simply know and understand these rights and the purpose of the Constitution, then we're going to know how to handle this today and how to get it back. Now, there's three things we have to know. And I think everyone in this audience should know these three things before we get going in all of this. We have to know three things. One, what is the purpose of government? Where do we see in any of our foundational documents what is the purpose of government? Well, I asked that question once, and one little girl at a political science class at a major university goes, I know. And she was the only one that raised her hand. Out of 250 college students, no one knows what the purpose of government is? And she goes, to form a more perfect union. Well, I kind of chortled too. And I said, I didn't have time to be tactful, so it was a short class. So I said, that's a real nice quote from the preamble, but it's wrong. We see the purpose of government when we refer to creator-endowed rights, that we were endowed by our Creator with certain, and I do use the term, unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's the very next line, my friends, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. The only reason you need anyone in government, and I don't care who it is, from the dog catcher all the way down to the president, if they're not protecting life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or my ownership of property, then you don't need them and you don't want them. Why do you need a president? God only knows that answer, but right now we don't. And there is a solution to all of this. I will never say that a return to God is not the answer. It is. Although I wrote a book, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. I still believe that too. I still believe in that cliche. It almost sounds cliche, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's exactly how I feel, and it's the reason I'm standing before you today. I still believe in those three fundamental things: God, family, and country. I do believe in that. And this is what we're trying to achieve here. So, the next one, okay, we now know the purpose of government. What is it? To protect God-given rights. That's the only reason they're here: life, liberty, and property. We're not doing a very good job, are we? Especially on the life part. Now, the second one, what is the purpose of the Constitution? I just gave you a hint. What did Jefferson say? The Constitution was to bind them down with the chains of the Constitution. It is the supreme law that they have to obey. Basically, it is this: the Constitution was written so that the abuses of King George III would never happen again. That's it. It is to limit what government can do. And the Founding Fathers got together and said it. We will make sure the tyranny of King George III can never come back. Well, does that mean the Constitution is worthless and the intent of the Founding Fathers is worthless because we have subverted all of that and we have destroyed their intent? Evil men have done that. Criminals have done that. And it is time for us to take it back. And I'm here to show you that solution. Okay? Now, okay, so we have the first two. The purpose of government, we know what that is. The purpose of the Constitution, we know what that is. So what was the purpose of the Bill of Rights? In fact, Patrick Henry was one who said, well, you know, I think we need a Bill of Rights. I think we need what they said, a Declaration of Rights. So what the purpose of the Bill of Rights was? You can remember that in one word. A lot of us remember an old TV show, black and white, back in maybe the 60s, The Untouchables. The Founding Fathers got together. This was a couple of years after the Constitution was devised. And they said, okay, the Constitution doesn't go far enough. I get that. I understand that. We're going to make a Declaration of Rights called the Bill of Rights that government can never touch. And so what would we do if we were doing the same thing today? What would we do? How many would we come up with? Tell me that we all get together and brainstorm the things that government can never do to us ever again. How many would we come up with? Well, the founders came up with 189. That was the original Bill of Rights, 189. Probably a little bit too long, huh? And so they dwindled them down to 12. And the real boss of the federal government, the states, dwindled them down to 10. And they ratified the 10 that we have. And so what is government supposed to do? In the First Amendment alone, it can never intermeddle with my right to freedom of religion or yours. They can't. So your church being required to be a 501c3, is that a violation of the First Amendment? Of course it is. Of course it is. And no church should have it because it's a violation. And if they come in requiring that, we should stop it. And especially the county sheriff, because he knows and understands his duty to interpose on behalf of the people. So if they come in and try to infringe the right to freedom of speech, we'd have to stop it. If they try to come in and infringe your rights to peaceably assemble, or freedom of the press, or the right to file grievances against government, local officials would have to stop them, because we swore to uphold and defend, protect and preserve the God-given rights that are here in front of us. And so I love the Bill of Rights. I propose this, and I even say this to government officials all the time. And I say this on radio shows. In fact, I've said it on Common Sense Coalition with Beth Ann. And I recommend that all of you listen to her show. In fact, she's one of the sponsors of tonight's event. That why don't we try for 1 year, everybody, every public official here in Missouri and in your county, let's obey, enforce, and follow the Constitution, especially the Bill of Rights, for 1 year. If things aren't solved, I'll go away. I'll leave you alone. But let's try following the Constitution. Obey, enforce, and preserve the Constitution by act and deed, by word and deed, for 1 year. That makes me almost giddy about the potential and possibilities. Now, real briefly, I want all of you to also know what I have over at my table. This is we're gonna show you this. We're gonna go over this, and I can't even see. This is gonna work maybe not that great because I can't see the screen that I'm gonna be showing you. No teleprompters. Where's Obama when you need him? You know? So, all right. This is a copy of the Supreme Court decision that I won against the Clinton administration. It was really a miraculous case. A couple of small-town sheriffs sue the Clinton administration, take it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and win. I'm telling you right now, that's why I still believe in miracles. This is one of them. You know, if you look at all the people in history that sued Bill Clinton, even way back when he was governor of Arkansas, I was the only one to ever sue Bill Clinton on a non-sexual matter. Yeah, true story. Yeah. So, anyway, you need to get a bunch of these. You need to pass these around, and I'm going to show you why. The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. This book has brought around miracles too. And we're seeing the fruits of this book now that we have over hundreds and hundreds, but about 350 sheriffs now nationwide, and some right here, Sheriff DeLay included, who are standing against the gun control proposals of the White House and the federal government. Yeah. And from my cold dead fingers, Why America Needs Guns, I wrote that back in 1994 when I first filed the lawsuit. I rewrote it in 2000 to kind of update it, and then I did a sequel to that, The Magic of Gun Control. And some people, the magic, let me tell you right now, it's sarcastic, okay? It's a sarcastic title. Because if gun control provided any benefit whatsoever, it would be magic. And if you want magic, go to Disneyland or Las Vegas, okay? But if you want freedom and God-given American liberty, then let's stick together as fellow Americans and Christians And let's protect this fundamental right together. We can. And then finally, right here, this is called The Last Line of Defense. This is a 6 DVD set of the Constitutional Convention that we had for public officials and sheriffs in Las Vegas on Constitution Day, September 17th, this past 2012. You can see for yourself the training that we offered to peace officers, county commissioners, and there's a county commissioner that's one of the instructors, Stuart Rhodes, Larry Pratt, Michael Badnarik, Joe Bannister, former IRS agent. These are the instructors and the teachers in this. And then we had Sheriff Joey Kyle from Missouri, he spoke. We've had just the lineup in here alone, but it's a 7-hour, 6 DVD set. I highly recommend to you. And we're offering a huge discount over at the table. But now, I got to tell you, something happened. I had a chief of police from Missouri call me just about 2.5 weeks ago. His name is Chief Larry Kirk. I don't even remember the name of the town. I know it's near St. Charles, but I don't remember the name of the town. Maybe some of you do. He says, Sheriff, I've heard a lot about your constitutional conventions that you're having for sheriffs and peace officers. I want to work with you on getting one here in Missouri. And I said, great, let's do it. I promised a couple of sheriffs that we would have our next one in Missouri. And he said, great, let's do it. So, wait, don't clap. Don't clap. Because if we have it, it's going to be as a result of your donations. So if you don't support it, don't clap. Okay, good. Do you know, to fund that entire convention, all I would need is about $30 from each of you here today. And we're done. Okay? All right? Thank you. So some of you will have to give 100 because there's somebody who's not going to give, and I don't think these little kids are going to. So, and if some of you can give more than that, we need it. And I'm telling you right now, the only way we had those other conventions was because grassroots people from all across the country donated. And we raised, for our first one, we raised $150,000 so we could pay the airfare and hotel for every sheriff that attended. And we had almost 90 sheriffs attend. So you do the math, you know. You can pay for your sheriff to be there. You can pay for your local cops to be there. We want any and all of you to attend. All of you can attend. We're going to open it up to the public. But primarily, if there's not room, sheriffs, county commissioners, chiefs of police, and peace officers be the ones that we really want there. That is the line of defense. If we have those officials keep their oath of office, do one simple thing: keep your word. When you took your job, you raised your right arm and swore in God's name that you would uphold, protect, and preserve the United States Constitution, those God-given rights that we were blessed with as Americans to begin with. If we return to those basic fundamental principles, yes, godly, biblical principles, then America will survive. We are at the most critical stage in American history since the Civil War. We are the generation who will decide whether or not we will continue as a constitutional republic, or will we succumb to the political correctness of the day to become just another socialistic, communistic, Marxist country. It is so critical that we get involved in this now. The miracles are happening. I'm asking you to join with us in this wonderful miracle. Go to our website, cspoa.org. And you can become a member and you can help donate there, or you can donate before you leave today. Beth Ann's over at the table. Just throw the money there. If you're writing a check, make it out to CSPOA. We need you. It won't happen without you. I wish I could just put up the money. I was in law enforcement 20 years, okay? All right, that's what I did most of my career, and now I do this. The question is, on my whole miraculous story, and it is a miracle, why would a small-town sheriff from southern Arizona come to the point that he felt no way out except he's going to sue the Clinton administration. Have you ever heard of David versus Goliath? This was it in real life. And most of the time, David doesn't win, does he? Most of the time, David gets squashed like a pumpkin seed. And I had no visions of grandeur that this was going to be another wonderful event for the David winning. I didn't think that at all. In fact, I was scared to death, and I'm sure David was too when he was picking up the stones. And I was. And after I decided to do this, I was scared even more that I had to tell my wife about it. And then I thought, well, what do I have to be afraid of? She's going to do what good wives do. She's going to talk me out of it. She's going to tell me, are you nuts? And she didn't. And in fact, when I told her this crazy idea and that I had, she said, well, maybe now we know why you were supposed to be sheriff. And I said, okay, I'm gonna take that as a yes. And she just shrugged. And let me tell you, ladies especially, she made the decision. That's when the decision was really made. We didn't call together a committee. We did it. And the good Lord blessed us. And now I'm going to tell you right now, don't go to court anymore. What I learned from going to court is there is not time nor money anymore for that to happen. And we don't ask. He is absolutely correct. 5 people get to tell us what our liberty is. 5 people in Washington, D.C., 5 political hacks for the president are going to tell us what our liberty and freedom and what God blessed us with to be free men? No, 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 no. You know, lately I saw this movie and I've seen it on Broadway. Do you hear the people sing? Singing the song of angry men? It is the music of a people who will not be slaves again. That is how I feel, my dear friends. We are not going to be slaves again. And what did... Hey, you guys in the back, I'm not going to be able to do it. The screen, you can leave that right up there, but I can't see it, so I can't know where we're going, and I can't give you direction. So I was going to show a bunch of stuff here. In fact, I'm trying to think where we could get to. Slaves again, yeah. Well, let me quote George Mason. In fact, George Mason's quote that you've heard a lot lately since the big debate is in my first book. And he says, I asked, sir, what is the militia? It is the whole body of the people. And then he adds this, to disarm the people is the best and most effectual way to enslave them. Talking about slaves, take my guns, you make me a conquered people or slaves. That's the only people that have ever been disarmed throughout world history. You are conquered or you are a slave. Which one are our wonderful politicians in Missouri and Washington, D.C. trying to make us? A conquered people or a slave? Those are the only two that have ever been disarmed throughout the world today and throughout world history, especially during the 20th century. We saw so much evidence of that over and over and over. Now, in speaking of that, if you can, in the back, my tech guys, if you can forward it to, not being able to tell you. Okay, I know that's the front page. Keep going until we see the slide. Are you trying to help me? Okay, go past that one. Keep going. You should go to a slide that says, we have held, however. We have held, however. Says we have held, however. You're going to. Okay, we have held, however. You see it? Okay. My dear friends, would you love to see that quote from the United States Supreme Court? It's in this book. It did happen. That's the first miracle of this case. The Mack Prince case, the Sheriff Prince from Montana, myself from Arizona, I was the first one to file this case. This is the first major quote where I believe we're changing America. If we know about it, and this entire case was the most powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of our country. Man, if that works, that might work. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Okay? Now, this might be cool. Except I don't want anybody to tell people that I was using a teleprompter. If you people get man. Yes, yeah, thank you. But if this is true, if this statement up there is true, and again, it came from the Mack Prince case, it's in this little booklet. We have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction. That means the state of Missouri is not subject to federal direction. You got that? Okay. Now, that means, well, you're probably thinking, well, the county legislature is then, or the city legislature is. No, they're political subdivisions of the state. They're not either. And in fact, Scalia, who wrote this decision, makes that clear also, that it's no one in the state. It's no public official in the state. It is no one. It is no legislature. So this means if we're not subject to federal direction, is the President of the United States federal? Then we're not subject to the President, are we? Oh, you like that, huh? Is the United States Congress federal? Yes. Then we're not subject to them either. They're federal. Okay? What is the next slide? Give me the next slide. What is it? Oh, it is incontestable. Okay, leave that one there, but I'm going to get to that one in a minute. On the very next page in the booklet, it also says this: the federal government may not compel the states to enact or administer a federal regulatory program. End quote. Now, you're getting too excited, ma'am. You see what the truth does to you? You see? And this is the truth. And you know what? I get excited about it too. I love reading this case, and every time I learn so much more about it. What does that say about Obamacare? Do we have to do it in our counties? No, we do not. And this proves it. Isn't Obamacare a federal regulatory program? Then your county and your state don't have to do it. Read the Mack Prince case. And before that, we still didn't have to do it. Who, my friends, is in charge of enforcing the 10th Amendment? Who is in charge of protecting state sovereignty? And what is the purpose of state sovereignty? The purpose of state sovereignty is to protect the sovereignty of the individual. Okay? That's it. So, if we are here to do or enforce the 10th Amendment, who's in charge of enforcing states' rights and the state sovereignty? Everybody in Missouri, especially the ones who took an oath to do just that. How about, would your sheriff be required by law and by solemn oath to enforce, protect, and defend state sovereignty? Of course. And you with him You get we the people, plus the sheriff, and now let's add in some county commissioners. And what do we do with this? We restore liberty tomorrow. Not the next election, not in Washington, D.C., not the next campaign. And by the way, you donate to make this next convention happen, you're donating to yourself. This will be the first time you could donate to something that is absolutely for you and your family. Not for a campaign, not for another politician, but for you and your family. That's what this CSPOA is all about. It's about we the people working with local officials, standing together and doing what Madison said. Erect the barriers against the encroachments of the national authority. Wow. So, nothing there. Go back, hit left arrow, and go back to where it says gold interpose. It'll be gold interpose. Right there. Is it there? Okay, that's the Kentucky and Virginia resolution that was written by Jefferson and Madison. Madison uses, can you see the word interpose? He uses the word interpose. Do we know what that means? He says the state legislatures are duty bound. State officials are duty bound to exercise their power to protect the people from being victimized by the federal government. This is back in 1775, folks. That's nothing new. And so how do we make sure that we build those barriers and that we have local officials that interpose? They have to know and understand the doctrine and theory of interposition. They put themselves in the way. We're now seeing this happening in America, where we're getting more and more sheriffs and more local officials and state legislatures who are doing just that, interposing on our behalf to keep federal government and Barack Obama out of our lives and off our backs. Okay? That's it. Now, basically, the 10th Amendment says this, that the states can make the federal government irrelevant. And that's our job, to make them irrelevant. You want to stop Agenda 21? Erect the barriers here. You want to stop the NDAA? Erect the barriers here. Do you want to stop Obamacare? Erect the barriers here. You want to stop federal gun control? Erect the barriers here. All right. Hey, we're up. Okay, next one, go right. Now, right here, folks, is an amazing quote, and it's from a man who most of you don't know. Judge John M. Roll was killed 2 years ago on January 8th, 2011, at the Safeway parking lot in Tucson, Arizona, during the assassination attempt on Congresswoman Gifford. 6 people were killed. One of them was my judge who first heard this case. He was the judge I filed in his courtroom, and without him, this case would have never made it to the Supreme Court. He gave us the most powerful ruling. He surmised in one sentence in his ruling my motivation for suing my own government. I was forced to choose between keeping my oath. Have you ever seen anybody in public office talk about the oath of office? This is a federal judge talking about the oath of office, and that I was forced to choose between keeping my oath to the Constitution and to my people, to the people who elected me, or obeying a stupid law. That's an easy choice. That's easy. You keep your word. You keep your oath. You have a solemn, sacred oath. And Judge Roll recognized that. In his courtroom, I want you to remember this too. He taught me so much in such a little time. In his courtroom, the attorney for the federal government was cross-examining me, and she broke protocol and started testifying herself to the judge. And she said, "Your Honor, why in the first 4 months of the implementation of the Brady Bill background checks, We've denied 250,000 felons from getting guns in this country. And I'm sitting there going, why isn't my lawyer objecting to this lie? And he doesn't. He let her go on. And she's not even supposed to be allowed to give evidence. She's supposed to be cross-examining me. And Judge Roll stopped her. And I'm so glad my attorney didn't get involved in it. Judge Roll, this is the type of man we lost on January 8th, 2 years ago. He said, "Counselor, do not try to pretend in this courtroom that your statistical analysis somehow equates to constitutionality." Yeah. You see, we get caught up in that, don't we? We get caught up, oh, guns reduce crime, or guns, my gun does this, guns are good, and no, the statistics prove that it's bad, and we want Pierce Morgan to tell us all these stories about how guns are making people safer in England, you know, and they get rid of the guns, and now we're safer. It doesn't matter. Gun control in America is against the law. It doesn't make, you can talk about all the statistics about guns until the cows come home. It doesn't make it constitutional. And that's what we learned from Judge Roll that day. And I have to tell you, there's a chapter dedicated to him in this book. He changed my life, and I honor him as the great American and a principled judge, a federal judge who told his own boss, "You exceeded your authority." All right, keep going. Right arrow, right arrow. Let's play that one, and I'll tell you.
Let me have those front seats. Better make it light on yourselves and let me have those seats. Are you gonna move? No. If you don't give me that seat, I'm gonna have you arrested. You may do that.
All right, cut it. Thank you. Now, I'm going to make a little bit of a disclaimer here. I've had people come up and tell me, "Did you know Rosa Parks was a communist? Did you know that this whole thing was staged?" And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care. This is a story we need to learn from. And I'm going to tell you why. Because we should have never heard of it, no matter what it was. I don't care. We should have never heard of this story. We should have never heard of Rosa Parks. And do you want to know why? Because she was arrested. The principle is still the same. She was arrested. She was booked into jail. She was fingerprinted and photographed and booked into a jail cell because she refused to give her seat to a white man. And if that doesn't enrage every one of us, then we are the ones missing. We are the ones that are wrong. And this is what should have happened that day. When that bus driver got off and got on the payphone and called the police, hopefully a good constitutional sheriff intercepts the call and tells dispatch, "I'll handle that call myself with Deputy Smith." And this good constitutional sheriff gets on that bus in Montgomery, Alabama, December 1st, 1955, and walks up to Mrs. Parks and says, "Ma'am, just what seems to be the problem here?" And Mrs. Parks looks up really kind of scared. She's facing the sheriff. She knows this could be really bad for her. And she looks up with her big, beautiful eyes and she goes, "Why can't we just be left alone?" And this good constitutional sheriff is touched, and he sits down next to her, and he reaches over and he shakes her hand, and he says, "Ma'am, I really admire what you've done here tonight. This took a lot of courage, and it would be an honor for my deputy and me to escort you home safely." And they do. They take her home. They don't take her to jail. They take her home. And then he tells Mr. Parks, "Do you have a gun in the home?" "Well, of course I do." "Well, make sure you keep it close by, because there could be trouble in the town. And my deputy here is going to be giving you extra patrol all night long. And throughout the week to come, every shift will be assigned to give your home extra patrol. But we can't be here every second. So if you have to defend your family and yourselves, you let your conscience be your guide. But we're going to be trying to help you and protect you as best we can." My dear friends, that is a constitutional sheriff. Yes, go ahead. And what you want today is a sheriff who knows the difference between enforcing stupid laws or keeping his oath and obeying God's law, the laws of equality, and that all men are created equal. That's what I'm after. That's what I beg that will happen in America today. Have we stopped putting people at the back of the bus? Oh, heavens no. Ask gun owners today. They're the ones getting put to the back of the bus. I'm working with an Amish farmer in Wisconsin right now. He's getting put to the back of the bus. Do you know why? Because he thinks, if we let these Amish farmers get away with this, really, we're so proud of the FDA and these other state agencies that are trying to put these criminals in jail because they won't pasteurize their milk. They actually have the audacity to believe that they can own land, grow some grass, let their cows go out and eat the grass, bring the cows in, milk them, and share that product with friends and family. Have you ever heard of anything so horrible? Of course we're arresting them for that. And that is the purpose of the FDA. The FDA has been doing that. But you know what? Sheriff Brad Rogers in Elkhart County, Indiana, he told the FDA that if it came in to bother David Hostetler, a local Amish farmer, if they came in to bother him again, that Sheriff Rogers would arrest the FDA for trespassing. Yeah. And so what did I do? Vernon Hirschberger called me along with a friend of his that deal in raw milk and raw cheese and raw butter. And they called me and say, "Hey, do you want to come to Madison, Wisconsin?" I said, "What for?" "To drink raw milk with us at the state capitol in broad daylight." It just sounded like the right thing to do. So I did. And I drank raw milk when I spoke before the Kentucky Sheriff's Association. There's 116 sheriffs in the room, and I'm drinking illegal milk to start my talk. And now, I've drunk raw milk in about 7 different states, including our convention in Las Vegas this past September 17th. And the truth of the matter is, my dear friends, I hate milk. But you know, maybe it's psychosomatic. It's freedom milk to me. And it sure tastes better than store-bought milk, I'll tell you that. And I love the cheese that Vernon Hirschberger has made for me. And I've had dinner at his home, a very humble home, with his 9 children, while they sang me a church hymn about having faith no matter what happens. That's all I remember about the song, except that it brought a tear to my eye. And now this man, this good man, is facing going to jail because he won't ask government permission to milk his cows, and he won't pasteurize his milk. He's facing jail time. You think that we're still not putting people at the back of the bus? We are, and we need constitutional sheriffs to stand and interpose on behalf of American citizens. Okay, keep going. Okay, right here. This is the case again. It is incontestable that the Constitution established a system of dual sovereignty. Although the states surrendered, Scalia made a mistake there. The states didn't surrender anything when we formed the new federal government, did they? What did we do? Oh, we surrender to the federal government that we're forming? And let's remember, the states formed the federal government, not the other way around. We did not form them to be our boss. We did not form them to run our water, our air, our farms, our milk, our education, our health care, every facet of our lives controlled from Washington, D.C. bureaucrats. And you want me to tell you one thing absolutely that I know without equivocation, that the bureaucracies of Washington, D.C., their policies and their regulations do not supersede the Bill of Rights or your right to the pursuit of happiness. They do not have any bearing on that. They do not supersede them. And quite frankly, the federal government says, oh yes, we have to follow the rules, but if we create some bureaucracies, they don't. Oh, come on. This is absurd. And you might even get some Supreme Court decisions that say, yeah, federal bureaucracies can do whatever they want. Well, our sheriffs in Missouri and the legislatures here say you can't, and we will erect the barriers against such. Scalia used the wrong word. What is the word in the 10th Amendment that the states did when we formed the new federal government? There's one key word in the 10th Amendment. We didn't surrender these duties to the federal government. We delegated. And if I'm the boss, I can delegate, can't I? So this is another sign that the federal government is not our boss. The states and us. What is it? So next one. Next. Right arrow. There we go. Residual state sovereignty was also implicit, of course, in the Constitution's conferral upon Congress of not all governmental powers. Wow! What kind of powers were they given? Enumerated and discrete. He says it right there. Isn't it on the screen? Discrete, enumerated ones. Which implication, my friends, you have got to see this. You want to see the miracle of this case? Which implication was, do you see the two words next? Rendered express. In other words, rendered absolute. What do all your politicians tell you? That the Constitution is livable, breathable, moldable, changeable, it just does whatever we want it to do? No. Right here, it says what the Constitution is. Rendered express. By what? The 10th Amendment's delegation powers. The state delegated. Look, he quotes the 10th Amendment. Read the 10th Amendment. This is what it says. If we didn't give the federal government the power, then it belongs and stays with us. How many assignments were given to the federal government? 18 in Article 1, Section 8. That's it. That's all they get. If they want to be creative and they want to go outside that, who has to stop it? The states. And we take back America, county by county and state by state. And you know what this is? It is a peaceful solution. And we're seeing it every day now. And we're seeing sheriffs and county commissioners and others standing. And now I want to bring this whole thing to Missouri in May. And you have other officials here that want us to do it. Will you join with us in that? Yeah, good. All right, next one. The great innovation of this design is that our citizens would have two political capacities, one state and one federal. We all get that. Read the next line. Each protected from incursion by the other. What? So who is supposed to protect you from the incursions of the federal government? We do. State and local officials working hand in hand with us. Okay? Next one. He quotes Madison in this decision. As Madison put it, the local or municipal authorities form distinct and independent portions of the supremacy. Federal government says they're supreme. No, not true. And in fact, in this great decision, he clarifies the supremacy clause. The federal government isn't supreme, except when they follow the Constitution. It must be everything they do pursuant to the Constitution. If they're outside the Constitution, what they do has no more meaning than if it was some communist dictator doing it in Latin America. It means nothing to us. If it's outside the Constitution, it has no supremacy and it has no bearing on you and me. All their gun control proposals have no bearing on us whatsoever. They're outside the Constitution. They're outside the untouchables. They can't touch them. Yeah. Next one. Now he compares state sovereignty to one of the three branches or separation of powers. This separation of the two spheres, what two spheres are we talking about? The state sphere and the federal sphere. He said the separation of these two spheres is one of the Constitution's structural protections of liberty. Oh, so what is state sovereignty? A structural protection of liberty, my friends. Wow. Just as the separation and independence of the coordinate branches of the federal government serve to prevent the accumulation of excessive power in any one branch. Here Scalia gives us the solution. It's in gold, my friends. A healthy balance of power between the states and the federal government will reduce the risk of tyranny and abuse from either front. Do we have that healthy balance of power today? Of course not. So what is it that we must do? The states and counties, cities, and local officials, with we the people, the ultimate power in our government, maintain and take back this healthy balance of power, which means the federal government gets out of our lives, and we tell them that. And the first state that understands that we cut financial ties and strings with the federal government will be the richest state and the freest state in this union. We don't have to secede. We get the federal government to leave. We're not leaving, they are. Next one. Next one. Hence, all of this is for this. Every bit of this is in this little booklet that we just went through. It's all in this. Hence, a double security arises to the rights of the people. Get this. The different governments will control each other at the same time that each will be controlled by itself. Any question as to whether or not the federal government will control itself? Then that puts it back onto us, doesn't it? Erect the barriers. And it's all peaceful and effective. Next one. Next one. This is my favorite quote from the entire decision. Get that, folks. But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. That's really in the Supreme Court decision, folks. But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns and among branches of government precisely so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day. Have you ever heard that term before? The crisis of the day. Scalia must have been clairvoyant, because we are now having people stand against the crisis of the day, even when they fabricate them. Okay? Next one. Now this is the decision. This is the order of the court. Start with me in the gold part, okay? The federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems, nor command the state's officers or those of their political subdivisions to administer or enforce a federal regulatory program. Next one. Next. It matters not whether policy making is involved, and no case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits is necessary. Such commands are fundamentally incompatible with our constitutional system of dual sovereignty. End quote. Do you need anything more than this? This is a great history lesson. This is a great example of what judges are supposed to do. What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to interpret the law? Do you really need somebody to interpret shall not be infringed? You really need the Bill of Rights interpreted? No. They are supposed to do the same thing that your sheriffs and your peace officers and your local officials are supposed to do. They swear the same oath. They are to enforce the Bill of Rights. They are to uphold, protect, defend the Bill of Rights. They're not there to interpret anything. They are there to follow and defend and enforce. That's it. And when we do that, we take America back tomorrow. Now, I know my time is about up. In fact, it is up. And I'll be over here at the table with Beth Ann when we're done. And again, I would ask you, if you want this convention, if you want this to keep going, make a donation. We could raise that money for that convention right here tonight. It's in your hands. You want the solution? Look down at your hands. It's in your hands. The solution to take back America is in your hands. When I first filed this lawsuit, I was so amazed by the miracles that kept happening. When I decided, the night after I told my wife, when I decided to do this, I wasn't a member of anything. I'd never heard of Gun Owners of America. We didn't have Oath Keepers yet. We didn't have CSPOA yet. I didn't form that until 20 years later. I wasn't a member of the NRA, but my undersheriff was. And I said, Mike, I said, I really need some advice. I said, does the NRA have a toll-free number where you can call and get advice? And he says, here's the number. And I called it. I landed in the office of an attorney by the name of Richard Gardner. He worked for the NRA, and I told him who I was, what I wanted to do. And he said, Sheriff, we've already been preparing the paperwork on this case, and we've been praying that you would call. I was the first one in the country to call and to file this lawsuit. 6 other sheriffs joined the lawsuit after that. 6. So we had a magic number of 7. The magnificent 7. 7 out of 3,100 did this. You see the power of one? You see the power of few? We can still do this. And so, way back when I was a peace officer and a rookie cop, I was converted to the Constitution. And there's a table over here that has some of the literature of a man who was my mentor. I actually went to a police training seminar called Constitutional Studies for Law Enforcement Officers. The name of the instructor was Dr. W. Cleon Skousen. The name of his book that he taught and the name of the class was The Making of America. I spent 2 days, 16 hours of police training, learning about the Founding Fathers, the godly principles that this country was founded upon, and what my duty was to defend those principles. I'm here to tell you, I was converted to the United States Constitution and to the ideals America was founded upon. It touched my heart. And I promised that I would never be on the wrong side again. And at the end of the class, Dr. Skousen and I, during breaks, had become very good friends. We would talk a lot. He used to work in the FBI with my father. And we became very good friends. And at the end of the conference, he handed me his big 700-page book, The Making of America. And he looked me in the eye and he said, promise me that you'll teach these things to your children. I kept that promise. And now I teach them all across the country. And I've actually started teaching them to my grandchildren. I have 9 grandchildren and 1 on the way next month. And the oldest isn't even 7 years old yet. And do you want to tell me there's not a God in heaven? I'll never believe it. because my first grandchild was born on the 4th of July. And of course, her name is Liberty. Liberty LaDawn Mack Hardy. And I love Liberty in more ways than one. And I've taught these things to her. And you can look at sheriffmack.com and you'll see a picture of me teaching her kindergarten class some of these things that I'm going to share with you now. I'm going to close. But for my closing, I want to share with you what I call America's political prayer, so that you know, from my heart to yours, that there still is hope for America, and that we are it, and that if we're going to take our country back, it's up to two people, you and me. And we can do this. I know we can. It's happening. The miracles are happening in front of us every day. These are the best of times and these are the worst of times. This is such a huge opportunity to take America back. Yes, it's going to be up to us. And so, Dr. Skousen, when he was teaching 240 of us big tough cops this making of America, at the end, he did the same thing that I will do with you now. He had all 240 of us get up and he taught us this little kindergarten exercise. I've nicknamed it America's Political Prayer. It's probably not a prayer at all, but it might be the last one we got. So I'm going to share it with you. And I dedicate it to each of you. I thank you for the strength that you've given me tonight. I love going across the country and looking in your eyes because it builds me up. Because I'll be doing this Friday in Minnesota, Sunday in California, and Mesa, Arizona on Monday. And then I go to Washington, D.C. next Wednesday, and next Thursday, Delaware, and after that, I really don't remember. But I'm telling you, I feel God's hand in this, and I feel His strength, and I need your prayers, and I ask you to bear with me now as I share this with you. And one other thing I'll say about this. Remember, while I do this, I learned this at police training. And it goes like this. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And that's the eagle. Long may she be free. Thank you.